Hey guys, I'll be honest, I'm not feeling great today. I've spent all day trying to sort Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon bosses in a numbered list, but it just isn't working out. That was until I remembered about a thing called letters, and apparently you can stack them alphabetically, excluding E, and add an arbitrary S on top. I call this a letterer, but most people seem to call it a tier list. I knew learning about these things would come in handy someday. This is the objective and undisputable Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon boss tier list. So, what? I guess we can start with the first boss and go from there. I'm gonna include mid-bosses in this, so we'll start off with the Poltergeist. This is the classic guy. This boss has some great ambience going, good build-up, a nice simple first fight. And the music is simple, but it's a classic for sure. This is an A-tier boss. Here's how I ranked it in each category that I came up with. Feel free to tell me why I'm a stupid idiot that doesn't deserve to make even the simplest of decisions for ranking these how I did in the comments. Next up, the final boss of the Gloomy Manor, the Grouchy Possessor, aka the Spider. First off, there's quite a lot of really good build-up for this fight. You see spiders and spiderwebs spread across the mansion as you progress, and eventually you learn how to destroy them. Everything that this mansion teaches you culminates into a series of cleverly strung together puzzles disguised as a boss fight. But the intensity is there. This fight's got a good soundtrack. Maybe not quite as memorable as the Poltergeist, but still solid. And this is not an easy fight. This fan doesn't always do what you want it to.
How am I supposed to hit this?
And the game never even tells you that you can jump over these purple globs while you're vacuuming the spider webs.
Come on!
Great boss though. I'm gonna go ahead and put this one in A tier. Okay, I promise that if you skip ahead it won't look like this. I'm not putting them all in. Alright, Haunted Towers, where we're starting things off with the 3 D tier sisters. That's right, D tier. So the idea with this fight is that you're fighting 3 bosses at once, and only one of them is vulnerable at a time. This kind of fight is almost destined to be boring, unless it's done just right, and here it isn't. You just sit there with the flashlight charged up, and since they're all so stupid that they give you an entire rotation to stun them, you just wait till a vulnerable one rolls around. But when you try to catch the first one, the other 2 are going to hit you. The arena is pretty lame, the music is super forgettable, and there is no build-up. This boss just happens and ends. The only thing saving it from getting F tier is the fact that it's over quick. You're probably not going to get stuck on this boss. If it were terrible, I would give it F, but it isn't. It's just super lame. Alright, now for the next and last boss of the Haunted Towers. Stairs Case. This is one of those weird fights that I either want to put in S or F. It's so cool, and yeah, I'm including the endless stairs as part of the boss. The setting? S. Music? S. Concept? S. Mechanics? D. Okay, this part with a million flights of stairs is not actually the bad part. It's what comes after. This guy is even more lame than the 3 sisters. You just walk around and then beat him up. This fight has no mechanics. Plus, if you don't catch on that the unlit torches mark the safe stairs, this can be pretty insufferable. But just for how well it does what it does well, I've got to put this in at least B tier. Let's check out the old Clockworks, D tier. The next boss is the Ancient Poltergeist, and yeah, he's D tier. Imagine the first Poltergeist, except none of the atmosphere or build-up. The actual fight mechanics boil down to don't get hit and then suck him up, which is excusable when it's the first boss, or even if this fight just did some other things right. I don't like this boss. Let's move on. The end boss of the old Clockworks is, well, it actually is the old Clockworks. Oh wow, that must be pretty awesome. Is it like a giant clock mech, or like, no, they ruined it, it's just greenies. So this is one of those fight a bunch of common enemies that get progressively more difficult type fights. Think Van Gogh from the first game. It's not as much a boss as it is an arena. Cool environment and music though. C tier for Clock. Also, because it's kind of a bad boss fight. Not terrible though, I guess. Let's now proceed to the Secret Mines. This is a pretty cool level with only 1 boss. But this might be the last level that you can remember, and there's a reason for that. Ice Guy. Okay, I don't actually know what he's called. This is easily the most unique fight in the entire game, switching the genre and perspective entirely. This is such a cool boss idea, and it's the only boss so far to achieve F tier. If you gave up on Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, there's a good chance it was right here in this tunnel. And honestly, this guy looks like a rice cake. Sorry, that's unrelated, I just had to say that. This fight could have been S tier, if it wasn't so terribly difficult. And it isn't just that it has difficulty, it's that it has bad difficulty. Very bad difficulty. It's basically the opposite of the spiders. The Secret Mines teaches you nothing about the mechanics of this fight, which aren't even related to Luigi's Mansion. And it's not just that it's a break from the game's genre, it's the fact that even for a first-person motion-controlled rail shooter, this is pretty difficult. So you've got to be pretty darn good at first-person motion-controlled rail shooters in order to progress through this adventure puzzle game. This boss has ended so many people's enjoyment of this game. It kept them from experiencing some of Dark Moon's best moments, so it deserves nothing more than F. The fifth and final mansion, the Treacherous Mansion, has a total of 3 bosses. It starts off with dang it another poltergeist. This one's in space though. C tier. This strong poltergeist is not terrible. He doesn't end your playthrough, but it's pretty much the same as the ancient poltergeist. It sucks to see rehashed fights like this, but as far as rehashed fights go, this one's alright. And it's in space, so C tier instead of D. Next is the Boo Train, or Boolossus. Awesome setting, great concept, good music, mechanics could be better, not a good build-up. And screw this boss fight. I did not enjoy this fight. It's just so frustrating. So you've got to get this idiot to let you launch him into this here drill train, but you're probably gonna miss the drill because you have to line up things that just aren't in your control. The train might not be where it should be, even though you did your best. And once you do get him to blow up, you've got to individually launch these boos into boxes on the train cart that close as they fill up. But you're gonna miss them all and he's gonna reform. You might get through this easy, but I personally hated this boss's mechanics. I'm fine with difficult mechanics, but it's when they make you play around a cycling RNG element like this that I begin to lose my patience. This is a C tier boss. There's almost as much to like as there is to dislike. Let's move on. The Tough Possessor is the final boss of the final mansion, but not the final boss of the game. As Luigi enters the mysterious portal in the Treacherous Mansion, he is transported to the first S tier boss fight, Dark Souls.
And the reclusive lord of the profaned capital. Yon the giant.
It's simple. Get all of the knights to stand on one carpet and then trip them. But then it goes all crazy and it's a giant knight who's trying to slice you up and crush you. You've got to get this guy to step on 2 carpets, then trip him 1 foot at a time. This fight is simple, but it was the only one that I actually wanted to refight. I wish there was more of this. I think it's because it plays into the combat style of grouping up as many enemies together as you can before taking them all out. This is how you're supposed to fight the ghosts, and it's cool to employ that in an entirely different way against a different type of enemy. Really, the only criticism that I have about this fight is that the splash radius on the big guy's stomp attacks are a little too big. And yeah, maybe the music could be better, but it's nowhere near bad. This is just a cool, fun, engaging fight that I am happy to replay. And here we are, King Boo, the final boss of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. This was definitely the toughest boss to rank, just because he has so much going on. Basically, you fight him in this square where you've got to get spike balls to land on his head. Then you get chased through a building and return to enter his next phase. These sections get progressively more intense until his third and final phase. Out of all 3 Luigi's Mansion games, this game has the best final fight. Why? This chase part. Is it fun? Kinda. Is it hard? A little. What this sequence does is it breaks up the pacing of the fight. This isn't just another boss, this is a journey. Everything is on the line. You're traveling through this dimension, switching from a somewhat even playing field to being completely helpless, fleeing from the monster that has been looming in the shadows for this entire game. In the other games, the fight starts and ends on the roof. 3 phases, boom, dead. This feels much more epic, much more final. But it just barely misses S tier. I actually had to place it in A+, so it's the only boss to get placed in the middle of 2 ranks. Because this isn't just an A tier fight, but it can't be S tier either. And there's one big reason. The primary mechanic of fighting this boss is to wait for shadows to appear, lure King Boo to them, and get them to drop on his head. You might know where this is going. Where these shadows are is purely random, and to an extent, so is King Boo. While you can get him to stay in place and follow you a bit, you don't actually have control of where he is. He might not even be in the arena when the shadows appear. This means that you can end up running around with nothing to do just because the RNG was bad for multiple cycles in a row. As bad as that is though, this fight does everything else so well, it just barely sits below S tier. Hey, it could have been a lot worse. He could have been another poltergeist. Look at that, the letterer worked. They're all in order, granted probably the wrong order, but you know what, I tried. Let me know if you disagree with any of these, if a certain boss wasn't nearly as bad as I made it out to be, or if I hyped one up too much or something like that. And no, I'm not gonna stop uploading Luigi's Mansion videos. I know you guys want Super Mario 64 DS, but it's October, dang it, I'll upload what I want! Until I actually want some views, then I'll upload 64 DS. Sorry about that. Thanks for watching.